visa. This is a difficult visa to obtain. There's tons of different regulations on it, and it needs to be done properly by an expert immigration attorney. Myself, I am certified by the California State Bar. There's essentially only 200 of us or so out of 200,000 lawyers. So it does protect you, obviously, in some reason. Now, the first issue is where to set up the new enterprise. Well, because of the situation as to the fact that only $500,000 is being invested, not $1 million, there are limits as to where the investment can be made. Now, it must be made in a rural or high unemployment area, because if it were in just anywhere, the investment would have to be $1 million. And for example, just outside Chicago, for sure, is what's called a metropolitan statistical area. No way that is a rural or high unemployment area. Now, under the regulations, because of the nature of the investments, a rural area is better. There's actually less requirements involved with that than if it were a high unemployment area. Now, in California, Inyo County is the closest rural area to Los Angeles. If you're going to, for example, fly into LA airport, but keeping in mind that Inyo from LA is a very long drive. The town or city that the investment must be made in must have a population of at least 20,000 people. So even though it's in a rural area, it can't be a rural area with 300 people in there. It needs to be at least 20,000 people. So if, for example, one was going to fly into San Francisco, there's actually quite a few more rural areas in Northern California, such as Mendocino County, Lake County, Nevada County, Lake County, Glenn County, and there's others as well, depending where one would want to get the business going. Now, the question then becomes, let's say there's more than one investor per company. It is possible that there will be pooling arrangements. So let's say there are 10 investors. Each of them have $500,000. Well, it is possible to pool the investments together so that you multiply 500,000 by 10. Ultimately, there'll be 5 million, which will be pooled into this particular company. So what are the requirements? Well, each and every investment, of course, must have the required $500,000. You can't have one that has, for example, 500,000 and another that has 300,000. They all have to meet the minimum 500,000 for investing in a rural area. Each investor must show the creation of 10 jobs just for that investor. So if there are 10 investors pooling their money together, that means essentially by the end of the day, or when the petition to remove the conditional residency is done, there must be 30 jobs. Okay, that is 30 jobs need to have been created for all of them. So it's actually actually that's for 3. So it would be 10 investors. Each investor has to create 10 jobs, so that's 100 jobs. Okay, that's 100 jobs, and it is going to be a significant effort to show that 100 jobs are created, but it is certainly possible, depending on what it is. Now, working at the new company means that you need to engage in the new commercial enterprise. In order to do this, there has to be a significant amount of work that is done. It cannot be just a passive investment. That means you can't just send $500,000 to the United States and then go vacation at the beach. You need to be on the board of directors. It could be a manager, director. And because if there's a pooling arrangement, there's a large number of jobs that need to be created, while everybody that invests could be on the managing board of directors. Additionally, they could be the manager of the accounting team, economics team, marketing analyst team, communication coordinators. There could be an IT person, banker, human resources person, regulatory analyst, investment analyst, actuary, database administrator, PR specialist, budget analyst. There are all different kinds of personnel that can be managed, and as we'll get into later in here, each of these particular kinds of people, there could be, two or three that are hired per investor of each kind in order to meet the minimum requirements from there. Now, investing the $500,000, a couple things to keep in mind. The startup costs of the corporation are not considered an investment. The incorporation costs, attorney's fees costs, all that stuff, not considered part of the investment. And you have to keep that in mind, so that cannot be deducted from the $500,000. Now, a certain percentage of the investment must be used for employment, and this is where it sometimes gets difficult, because if the pooling arrangement is such that the $500,000 is invested and all of a sudden all of it goes out of the company and there's no money left to pay the employees, then of course it would never be approved. So there has to be an analysis of how much the employees will make, what the salaries are, and of course there has to be enough money to pay the employees. So in that particular regard, either 10 to 20% or more of the investment goes immediately to employment hires, or there's 10 to 20% more than the $500,000, which is given with over and above that for the employees. Now, what type of business are we talking about here? What kind of business can fit this type of scenario? Well, there could be an analysis of basically a business where possible investments in companies which invest in struggling companies. So, the way it would work is, let's say someone's coming from China and they don't have the expertise on analyzing a particular company in order to see if it is struggling, if it needs a cash flow, and so forth. So, essentially, the Chinese investor could invest in a company that does invest in struggling companies. And so let's say the $500,000 comes, a significant portion of that obviously would be able to go into the other company who actually does the investments and does the analysis of where to find the struggling company or the one that needs cash flow, and then forward the money over there. So if, for example, there is a bank in Chicago that needs capitalization, and let's say there's a company in El Monte, and let's say that the Chinese person comes in and starts the investment company somewhere in Inyo County. So a lot of the money will go to the investment company in El Monte, who will then invest the actual funds in the bank in by Chicago, and everybody's happy, and the investment would be legitimate under the EB5. Now, this is again, just clarifying that a money or a large portion of it, not all of it. Again, because there has to be money to pay the employees and so forth. That's the purpose of the EB5, is it's employment creation. And if there's no money to pay the 10 employees that are going to be coming, then investment's not going to work. Okay. Now, what happens if the EB5 is denied? Obviously, this is a lot of money for anybody, and they don't want to just throw it out. Well, an escrow agreement can be made where if the EB5 is denied, the bank returns the money to the investment company, who then returns the money to the investor, and it can be written very tightly so that this does happen, and if it doesn't, then there's certain consequences that would occur. Now, the creation of 10 jobs per investor, we did talk about this a little, but again, each investor can create several jobs. They can be secretarial, payroll managers, human resource managers, to the more detailed IT jobs such as administrators, supervisors, bankers, investment analysts, economists, and market research analysts, etc. Each of these jobs, of course, must be full-time by a person who is authorized to work. Okay? Now, what's nice about the EB-5? Well, there are derivative beneficiaries that essentially, and obviously, they don't have to invest a penny, but they come along for the ride and can get the green card as well. And it would be a conditional green card, of course, to start. And the first are spouses, and then those children that are unmarried and under 21 years old. If your child is approaching 20, 21, or 18, really, what you're going to want to do is move forward quickly so that your child will benefit from your petition. Otherwise, of course, the child needs to find his or her own way, his or her own petition. So initially the green card will be conditional for 2 years, and there will need to be, prior to the expiration of the 2 years, a petition to remove the conditional green card in order to get the permanent green card at that time. So what is the ultimate goal of the EB-5? I think everybody will agree, and they know this, that it will be to obtain the EB-5 conditional residence visa. And while this program is by no means easy, it is how the procedure goes, and if it's done properly, there'll be a